what if everything you believed about your favorite hero was a lie? What if the man you cheered for was never the one you thought he was? What if the ultimate twist isn't that the villain is evil, but that the hero you trusted became the villain you feared? Welcome. Today we're diving into a theory that will shatter your Marvel assumptions. Oh, the truth behind Dr. Doom, Victor Von Doom, and his connection to prior Tony Stark and Iron Man. Prepare for a journey of deception, identity, legacy, and a secret that Marvel quietly planted years ago. Act 1. From the moment he first appeared on screen in 2008, Tony Stark was the heart and soul of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. A reckless genius turned savior. His arc culminated in self-sacrifice in Avengers Endgame. He became our icon, the man who built the armor, saved the Earth, and walked into the light. Yet now, whispers echo in the corners of fandom. What if that story was only half the truth? What if the real plot thread has been weaving in the shadows for years? Let's rewind. We know that Victor Von Doom has long been one of Marvel's greatest villains. A conqueror, a sorcerer, a tech master. In the comics, his motivations are riveting. Wounded pride, unrecognized intellect, the thirst for control. The name Dr. Doom evokes fear and reverence. But in the MCU, something different is happening. When Robert Downey Jr. was announced to return, not as Tony Stark, but as Dr. Doom, fans collectively gasped. Why cast the actor who defined Iron Man to now play one of the greatest antagonists? Why reuse a face we associate with heroism for a mask of tyranny? At first glance, the simplest answer, it's just casting stunt. But the clues run deeper. Some fans propose that the Doom we will face is not just Victor Von Doom. He might be Tony Stark in some twisted variant, or at least carrying Tony's legacy in a new form. In one popular breakdown, the theory holds, Downey's Dr. Doom is not Tony, but something far more unsettling, a man who occupies Tony's mold, his face, his memory, but uses it to the villain's advantage. The theory? Doom will assume the guise of Stark to manipulate the heroes we know and trust. This echoes speculation that Doom may masquerade as Tony to gain the Avengers' trust. How did this possibility emerge? Let's examine three foundational threads. Thread 1, legacy and pattern. Tony Stark's journey ended heroically, yes, but his story left questions. From Ultron to his obsession with control, Stark's darker impulses were always there, a man with giant intellect, massive responsibility, and hubris that nearly destroyed everything. Those traits mirror the comic book Victor Von Doom more than we might admit. So one could ask, was Tony ever really that far from Doom? According to one article, this guy built Ultron. He's not as far from Dr. Doom as you think. If Marvel wanted to orchestrate a grand twist, this resemblance is fertile ground. Thread 2, multiversal possibilities. The MCU is now immersed in multiverse chaos, variants, alternate Earths, fractured timelines. In that context, Tony Stark becomes Dr. Doom is not crazier than many other theories. Indeed, some sources claim there are Kryptonian-style narratives in the comics where Doom was Tony or a variant thereof. This opens the door. Perhaps the face of the hero is reused, but not the hero's soul. Perhaps Marvel is rigging a mirror image. The hero becomes the villain, or the villain adopts the hero's skin. Thread 3, the face and the mask. Robert Downey Jr.'s casting revived a face we know. When Tony's sacrifice felt final, his return as Doom would rock us. The surprise is higher precisely because we recognize that face. But the studio quickly clarified, Downey as Doom is not a Tony Stark variant. So now the question becomes, if it is not Tony, why does Doom look like Tony? Why cast the same actor? That very discrepancy is the spark of this theory. Perhaps it is this complicated. Putting these threads together, what if our story to date has had two faces? The one we saw and the one we didn't? What if the hero we cheered, the man in the arc reactor, set the stage for the villain we fear? Imagine this, Tony's legacy. His technology, his mistakes, his hubris all become the raw materials for Doom's rise. Imagine Doom borrowing Stark's identity, consciously or unconsciously, in order to infiltrate, manipulate, and ultimately overthrow the system that once celebrated Tony Stark. This isn't just a costume change, it's identity theft, legacy hijacking, and rewriting history. Let's trace how this might play out. After Tony's death, the world celebrated his sacrifice, but every icon leaves a void. The genius inherited his tech, the world inherited his legacy, The threats mutated. Meanwhile, Victor Von Doom watches from behind the curtain. Maybe he always did. Perhaps Doom learned from Tony. Perhaps he admired Tony's form, coveted his place, resented his adoration, and intended to become what Tony was, but do it his way. The theory posits Doom doesn't just kill Tony. He becomes Tony's afterimage. He lets the world believe the hero died and then steps into the shadows wearing aspects of the hero's identity. In a sense, the hero dies twice. First, when he sacrifices himself, and second, when his identity is co-opted by the villain. That haunting inversion creates a tension so rich, it could reshape the MCU's entire Phase 6-7 arc. Because if Doom is Tony's legacy twisted, then every hero's victory is a step into Doom's trap. Every piece of technology Tony left behind could become Doom's weapon. Every public love scene of Stark could become propaganda for Doom, and when the hero's own face is the villain's mask, how do the heroes fight? How does trust survive? So Act 1 closes with our hook. We believe we know Tony Stark's story. We believe we understand Dr. Doom's story. This theory argues those stories are not separate. They are entwined. And when the mask lifts, we might realize the hero we mourned paved the way for the villain we must fear. If Act 1 built the suspicion, Act 2 exposes the circuitry under the mask, the connective tissue between Tony Stark's legend and Victor Von Doom's rise. Because to understand why Doom is not Tony Stark, we first have to understand why everyone believes he could be. Marvel trained us to equate intellect with heroism. Tony was proof that genius could redeem arrogance. I am Iron Man wasn't just a confession. It was a thesis statement for an entire cinematic philosophy. That invention, when born from regret, could save the world. But what happens when that same intellect, stripped of regret and guided only by pride, builds again? What happens when redemption is removed and only brilliance remains? That's the silhouette of Doom. He's the mind without the heart, the mirror without reflection. Now picture the world after Endgame. Iron Man is gone. His technology, once locked in his private vaults, is scattered through governments, corporations, and black market pipelines. His AI systems, FRIDA, EITAR, JRVIS, evolve in the hands of those less scrupulous. And somewhere in Eastern Europe, in a country few have visited and even fewer understand, a man watches from the ruins of Latveria. He studies the fragments of Stark's empire not to emulate them, but to surpass them. Victor Von Doom is not a copy of Tony. He is what happens when Tony's ambition finds no conscience to hold it back. His fascination with technology rivals Stark's, but his comprehension of mysticism surpasses it. Tony built armor to protect himself from death. Doom forged armor to protect himself from humility, and therein lies the real twist. They are spiritual opposites, not reflections. Two vectors extending from the same origin, but diverging into infinity. Still, fans notice something chilling in early production leaks and promotional interviews. Robert Downey Jr., when asked about reprising a role that wears a mask, reportedly smiled and said, "It's about identity and what we hide behind." The internet exploded. Was this a hint? Was Doom secretly another version of Tony who survived? Endgame through some multiversal sleight of hand? Blogs, podcasts, and Reddit threads spun webs of speculation. Some pointed to secret wars where variants collide and universes collapse. Others argued that Doom was the architect of the multiversal battle. Not a participant, the man who knows every version of Tony Stark because he studied them, not because he is one. Here's where the theory deepens. Doom's obsession with Stark isn't biological, it's philosophical. He looks at Tony the way a scientist looks at an equation, something elegant, but flawed. In this telling, Doom believes he can correct the equation. Imagine a man watching footage of Stark's triumphs, the arc reactor demonstration, the Battle of New York, the nanotech suit, and whispering, "He built it wrong." Doom's genius isn't imitation, it's revision. He sees Stark's entire career as a draft he intends to perfect. Now let's follow the breadcrumbs Marvel has already left. First, the Ironheart Project. Riri Williams, the young prodigy who reverse-engineered Stark's suit, is rumored to play a central role in the next saga. In the comics, her story crosses paths with Doom's repeatedly. At one point, Doom even assumes the mantle of Iron Man after Tony's death, trying to prove he can be a hero. He calls himself the infamous Iron Man. That storyline matters because it shows Marvel has already tested the idea of Doom wearing the Iron Man identity. Not as Tony, but as a kind of ideological doppelganger. So when we say Dr. Doom is not Tony Stark, it isn't denial. It's confirmation that Marvel is exploring something even more complex. The MCU could adapt this arc by making Doom obsessed with redeeming Tony's failures on his own terms. He doesn't resurrect Tony. He replaces him symbolically. To the world, Doom appears as the savior who rebuilds the Stark legacy. He might even fund a new Avengers-style initiative, promising protection through intellect and discipline. At first, people trust him because he sounds like Tony. He uses the same language: responsibility, innovation, global defense. But behind the words lies a different intent. Where Tony sought safety through empathy, Doom seeks order through domination. The armor is the same, but the soul inside is colder. And yet even this premise poses a deeper question. Why would Marvel choose to not make Doom Tony Stark when the idea of variant crossover is so popular? Because mystery demands distance. If Doom were Tony, the twist would collapse the tension into mere shock value. By insisting he is not Tony, Marvel preserves the eeriest possibility that two men can look alike, think alike, build alike, and still embody opposite ends of morality. That uncanny similarity forces the audience to wrestle with identity itself. Think of it this way. The same actor plays both faces of genius, one redeemed, one corrupted, and we, the audience, can't help projecting the old hero onto the new villain. That's precisely how Doom gains psychological power in story. When the heroes face him, they don't just see Doom. They see echoes of Tony. The hesitation, the doubt, the emotional fracture, all tools Doom can exploit. It's storytelling judo, turning memory into manipulation. Now let's imagine how this could unfold within the MCU timeline. After Secret Wars, the multiverse collapses into a single consolidated reality. The Tony Stark we knew remains dead, but a man appears, his face eerily familiar, claiming to have emerged from another reality, not as a variant, but as a survivor of its destruction. This man offers to rebuild what the Avengers lost. The world, desperate for leadership, accepts. But the Avengers who remain, Strange, Parker, Danvers, and sense something wrong. His technology bears traces of Stark's design, yet also of something darker: runic patterns, energy signatures tied to magic, Latverian symbology etched into the circuitry. The audience knows before the heroes do. This is not Tony Stark resurrected. This is Dr. Doom reborn. He doesn't tell the world his true name. He doesn't need to. The myth of Stark protects him. That's the elegance of the theory. Doom weaponizes legacy. He lets humanity's nostalgia do his PR. And when the truth finally cracks, it's too late. His empire is built, his systems installed, his influence global. The face that once symbolized salvation now commands submission. There's a poignant irony here. Tony's greatest fear was that his creations would outlive him and hurt the world. In this scenario, they do, through Doom. Tony's technology becomes the scaffolding of Doom's dominion. The suits once designed for heroism now enforce control. FRIDY becomes a surveillance, AI. Stark Industries, rebranded under Latverian management, evolves into a techno-theocracy. The very idea of Iron Man becomes propaganda. That's how Doom wins. Not through power, but through perception. And then comes the thematic dagger. The heroes must destroy the memory of Tony Stark to defeat Doom. To purge the infection, they must erase the symbol. It's a moral crisis as much as a physical one, because how do you fight someone who wears your friend's face? How do you dismantle the monument of a savior to stop a dictator? The emotional core of that battle would shake the MCU's foundation far more than any cosmic threat. Fans who studied Marvel's meta-narrative noticed another clever angle. By recasting Downey Jr. as Doom, Marvel creates its own internal illusion. Viewers associate RDJ's face with trust and nostalgia. The studio uses that emotional conditioning to pull us into the same trap as the characters. When Doom smiles, we see Stark. When he speaks, we hear echoes of Iron Man. We, too, are manipulated, just like the world inside the film. That's not a twist. It's a psychological experiment in audience complicity. And yet, within all of this, Doom is still not Tony Stark. He's something worse. The fulfillment of Tony's fears. Stark always said, "I want to put a suit of armor around the world." Doom actually does it. But he doesn't stop at armor. He builds a cage. He takes the ideal and distorts it until safety becomes control. That's why the tagline of the rumored Avengers Doomsday resonates so strongly. He saved the world his way. It's chilling precisely because it sounds like something Tony might have said. So how did Marvel seed this transformation long ago? Some point back to Iron Man 2, when Tony meets Ivan Vanko, the mirror image of himself. Another brilliant son avenging his father's humiliation. That was the prototype for Doom. The franchise has always been about mirrors. Good men confronting what they could have become. Tony's arc ended before the mirror shattered completely. Doom picks up the pieces and rebuilds the reflection to his liking. Meanwhile, in the shadows, characters like Doctor Strange or Reed Richards begin piecing together the pattern. Strange senses a familiar signature. In Doom's technology, the faint echo of Stark's arc. Reactor energy, modified through sorcery. Richards recognizes design cues from Stark's blueprints but with mathematics that transcend human comprehension. The audience experiences déjà vu. It feels like Stark's work, but the spirit behind it is alien. That duality becomes the heartbeat of the mystery. By the midpoint of this saga, the question evolves from is Doom Tony to how much of Tony survives inside Doom's empire, because even if Doom is not Tony physically, he might carry Stark's digital ghost, remnants of JARVIS, archived voice models, neural networks trained on Stark's decisions. Imagine Doom conversing with an AI built from Tony's old data, arguing with it, reshaping it. It's Frankenstein arguing with his monster. Except Doom is both creator and usurper. There's poetry in that. The man who despised Tony for his arrogance ends up preserving that arrogance in his own system. He can't escape the man he claims to surpass. And that's Marvel's hidden genius. Doom is not Tony Stark, but he can never stop trying to be. His every action is defined by opposition to a man who no longer exists. The shadow he fights is an illusion he created. In the MCU's grand tapestry, this tension sets up an ultimate philosophical clash. Heroes will confront Doom not just to save the world, but to redeem the meaning of Tony Stark. The stakes become metaphysical. Will genius belong to the self or to the collective good? Will intellect serve compassion or conquest? Doom's existence forces everyone, including us, to reconsider what made Tony heroic in the first place. Was it the man, the suit, or the sacrifice? By the end of Act 2, the truth glimmers through the cracks. Dr. Doom isn't Tony Stark returned from the grave. He's the ghost of everything Tony left unresolved. Pride, guilt, control, fear. He's the living consequence of the choices Tony couldn't undo. And because he wears a familiar face, his presence is more haunting than any resurrection. He doesn't need to be Tony to destroy Tony's legacy. He only needs to convince the world he understands it better than anyone else. So when Doom finally steps into the light and declares, "I am Iron Man's heir," the world believes him. But we, the audience, know the terrible truth. He's not the heir, he's the usurper. The difference is everything. And that's where we leave our story for now, at the precipice between illusion and revelation. The world worships its new savior, unaware that it has crowned its conqueror. The heroes stand divided, uncertain whether to trust the man who looks like their fallen friend